What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the That Fit Friend podcast. I am Rachel, and today we are joined by an awesome guest. It's Claire Bays.
Hi, friends.
Claire, Claire, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, for those that aren't as familiar with who Claire is, what Claire does, she is. I'm going to do my best here, Claire. You chime in if I miss anything, okay?
Okay.
She's a personal trainer. She's a content creator, social media guru is what I'll call you. She is a podcast host herself, Conversations with Claire.
Uh-huh.
She is a sober alcoholic, and I'm going to say just an all-around badass.
That thoroughly sufficiently covers it. There's nothing more that we need to cover. You got it.
All right, see ya.
You learned.
Awesome. Oh, cool. So yeah, that's Claire. But Claire, what I want to start with is really let's get a background on kind of your journey into fitness, like where you started, how you got into it, and if you have any kind of athletic sport background at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, zero. So,
Yeah.
I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma. As far as the intro goes, by the way, I train clients at Gym in Austin, Texas, and then I also offer online coaching. So just gonna get that out of the way.
Yes.
Those are the main things that I do, as well as the podcast. So, and pain-free performance is kind of my shtick these days. So
Awesome.
anyway, things have shifted over the course of time. Okay, so for my athletic journey, I did not get into a gym till I was in my 20s. I did not grow up playing sports. I was in a small town, and as you mentioned, the alcoholic in recovery, my journey looked a little bit different. So I wasn't in any sort of extracurriculars like that through childhood into young adulthood, all of that. So I'm in my 20s, and I started trying to find solutions nutritionally and made a lot of messes, got eating disorders, did the gamut, because that's what we do as humans. We bump into walls and we make our way through over the course of time, and I'm no exception to that. So started with the nutrition fund, trying to figure it out. And I remember, the gym was really scary, but those people clearly had a quality of life that I definitely desired. And what it stemmed from for me is I came from a family where morbid obesity is very present. And so I watched that really have an impact on my family, whom I love tremendously. And as I started to gain weight in young adulthood, it started to become like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, I really don't want to do this. What can I do? So like I said, I started trying to figure it out nutritionally by severely undereating and then binge eating and then bulimia and blah, blah, blah. But then in my 20s, I finally was invited to a gym. And I was invited to this CrossFit gym, and it had recently opened. We just spoke about it right before coming on air, how we actually like both know the owners of that place. And anyway, by a guy that I worked with. I was working at Lowe's hardware department at that time. And anyway, so he invited me, and I tried to go a few times, and it was so scary. So I'm early 20s, and I mean, it's a CrossFit gym. Like, these people are athletes. Like, they were at least like played in high school or college or whatever. And mind you, this was many years ago. And so I would drive around the block and drive home. Like, I would look at the facility, look through the windows, see these fit humans, and it freaked me out. And I was like, they belong there. I don't. I can't do it. So I actually went for a few weeks intermittently, if that, like less than a month, tried a few times, really tried to go, and I just couldn't get past the fear. And so I was just so convinced that I was going to get hurt because they know what they're doing and I don't. And so I tried to go. I didn't come back for 3 years. And then 3 years later, I returned back. By then I had been going to like a small Gold's gym on my own and doing a little bit of stuff really poorly, having, whatever. And so I was going to do a obstacle course race with some coworkers of mine. At that time, I was a bartender. That fits nicely into my alcoholism. Anyway, and so, but some coworkers of mine, we were going to go do this like 5K thing. And I was like, well, I don't run, so I'll go back to that CrossFit gym. By then it had continued to grow. I knew more people that went there. It was doing well as a business. And a few years later, so I just decided I'll go do that now. I've been going to this little gym for a little while. And thankfully, my plan was just to go for a few weeks and then leave. And then I enjoyed it so much, the community side of things, et cetera, that I decided to stay after that few weeks and that race. And then, of course, stayed there until I moved out of state. I was at that facility for the rest of my time there. And so didn't get into a gym till I was in my 20s. And then I moved really poorly for a very long time. And it wasn't until, I don't know, I think I had been a member at the CrossFit gym for at least 4 years before I finally started to switch the narrative from I'll never be an athlete. I'll never be. I can't do that. I can't to like the right person finally giving me some encouragement and believing that maybe I had the capacity to actually do things and do things well, with some intentionality behind it. So things started to really like shift then. But by then I had already been attending the facility for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good background. Well, tell me then, because you said you had like obesity running in the family, like you were noticing like, oh, I don't want this as you were going into adulthood. Where would you say was like that pivotal moment where you decided like, I need to change something?
Yeah. So there are different stages or sectors of life, right, where this has occurred. And so the weight gain one was, I think it was, my weight was fluctuating pretty severely. I remember the biggest fluctuation I saw was like 128 pounds to 168 pounds in like a matter of months. Like that was the most dramatic shift I saw, but it was kind of going like this. And so it started there. And the just continuous, like, I've got to figure this out. Like, I'm not willing to accept this. So it was like pain was the motivator there. And it was partially vain. It was part of it was, I don't want to, like, yes, sure, maybe I don't want the down chain, but I don't know that I really, I mean, you're in your young adulthood. Like, you're not thinking about the repercussions when you get diabetes down the road and heart disease you might deal with later. Like, it was more so motivated by like, I don't like the way that I look and feel in my body. And so that was kind of the primary pain thing there. And then from there, stepping into going into the gym, yet again, I see all of these individuals who have a quality of life that's better than mine. And I just experience enough pain to be willing to go do that thing. And I think it's in a combination of that and the encouragement from others that I could do it, And so certainly, like I said, there's whether it was a coach or just a person in my life who finally says the right thing to me, and so often we just need somebody to believe in us a little bit.
Yeah.
And so then when you take and apply that to my alcoholism, of course, it wasn't. By then I had also, and this is kind of just a maybe slightly interesting, different spin on it, is just that I had been going to the gym for many years while still suffering with alcoholism. And I didn't know yet that I knew that I had strange behaviors. I could tell you by the end of it all, like, yeah, so I have a substance abuse problem. And it's not just one substance anymore. Like I knew something was wrong, but I did a good job for a long time compartmentalizing my life and trying to keep things in their little boxes. And like, so same thing there when it comes to like finally deciding to step out of that, because the pain there had gotten so significant. And there was someone present who said, you have another option. There is another way. And so that's kind of just the repeated trend in these different buckets.
Gotcha. So then touching on the alcoholism part of the story, like walk me through like that experience and like when like stuff started, how it kind of progressed, and like then what the turning point there, because obviously somebody came into your life, but there had to have been like other details within that story. So walk me through that.
Yeah. And I'm going to attempt to give you obviously the cliff notes because you can't fit 15 years of experience into being a time of that. So, but I started drinking when I was 13 years old, and I was in a small town, and it was very normal. I was hanging around older kids, and I really liked the fact that they thought that I was fun. And I had this unique ability to intake high volumes of the substance and seem fine. Even if I was blacked out, I seemed fine. So I start at such a young age, and it's so normal around me that there are not people around going, that's not normal. Don't do that, And so I fall into the crowd of hanging with the older kids. And to me at the time, it's cool and I'm fun. And I love it when you think I'm fun because I just need you to love me. And that's what so much of it that I can identify. Like, it was like, I just had such desire to be loved. And in those scenes, I was, I got along great with the girls. I got along great with the guys. And it was just a social lubricant, and it was very normal in my circles. And so then I carry that into adulthood. And I'm bartending, of course. And I always said through those years, I'm like, yeah, we behind the bar, we just do this so that that way we watch y'all and just like feel fine about our behavior, you know? But I did not grow up with alcoholic parents or anything like that. So I didn't see modeled what that would do over the course of time. And I didn't know about the disease. And so
Hmm.
as it continued to progress, of course, I now know that at very, very early into that journey, that traumas started to rack up. But I wasn't aware of it because, like I said, like it was very normal in my world. Like blacking out multiple times a week was just completely normal. And, and if you're somebody who suffers with that disease, like you're mortified by your actions too. Something happens, and whether it's that you chose to drive or you did something, like you're like, I'll never do that again. I would, even if it's just that you ate too much Taco Bell, like that was weird.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that again. And then you play that out over the course of 15 years, and it's a progressive illness. And over the course of time, you start to need more, and then maybe you need other substances. I certainly did. And what started out as fun with friends, social activity, continued to start to take a turn over the course of those years to this is the coping mechanism that I grew up with. I'm all too familiar with it. The traumas are getting worse, but I can't even really call them that yet because I don't have that awareness. I'm just a young adult and weird shit's happening. And so I just carried on through that for quite some time, and my need continued to grow. And so I did my best to compartmentalize because even I was, it's embarrassing. And so I try not, I didn't want you to know how much I was intaking. So I would go do something over on the side that you didn't know about, or, I got in a really common habit of traveling to go have my antics so I could have my professional life at home and then try to keep it separate. I compartmentalized things as best as I could.
I see.
And by the end of it, I wasn't compartmentalizing any of it very well at all. I think it's a funny thing that we think that nobody knows what we're really up to, when in reality, like people know something's up.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, it progressed on, and it started to become like, I'm no longer doing this even to have a good time. I'm doing this to outrun my problems. I'm doing this to quiet the noise. My brain will not stop. And this is how I deal with life. And so I'm a ticking time bomb until I need this solution again. And so, by the end, my grandmother passed away. She had the largest hand in raising me. And so when she passed away, there was a very clear, distinct, I've heard of grief. I've never done it before, and I'm opting out. I'm not interested in that. So I did the stuff for the week following her death, as far as like doing the things that need to get done. And then after that, I drove away and was like, I'm not going to feel this. I'm not doing this. And so I went on a real rampage for the next 2 months of numbing. And it was a very conscious choice to numb. And then by the end of that 2 month-ish period, an event occurred where I wake up and I don't know how I got here. And and I got physically assaulted, and it got put on the internet. And so there was this combination of all these different things that are super not okay. But now it's on the internet, and now all of my people that I care tremendously, my gym community and things like that I so desperately want. I love them and I want to be loved back. And I don't know how this happened. I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. And so it took for me in that situation, it took for me this public humiliation piece of things for me to go, I can't keep doing this. And for years prior to that, I would write about like, I'd like to stop, or I'm going to try to stop for a number of days, or I'm only going to do this, or I'm going to try to control it here, or you name it. And I just couldn't seem to get that done. And so then after that occurred, then I finally reached out to a friend of mine that I knew that was involved in some recovery stuff and had been sober for some time. And I just said, hey, like, I can't live this way anymore. I'm confident that I'm going to ruin the relationships with my family members. They're already headed south and it's getting worse. All of these people around me that I like, they're my friends. Like no one approves of this behavior anymore. And by now, when I look in the mirror, like I don't even recognize that girl, and I don't trust her. I don't even feel like I know her. And so it had just gotten dark enough for me that I only saw it getting darker, and I felt very hopeless at that time. And so thankfully I knew somebody who had some resources, and they gave me those resources, and I just got busy doing the work that they told me to do. And thankfully I've been sober for a little over 3 years now. So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, congratulations on the 3 years.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's
It's way cool. Like it's
yeah.
really cool. All of that like desperation to be fun, to be loved that I was like
Yeah.
started chasing all those years ago. Like now, like I'm a riot without any of that. And I don't have to
Yeah.
deal with the repercussions. And I, for the record, I don't believe that like everyone suffers from that the way that I do. Like I think that there are people who can drink normally and that's great. Love that for you. I can't relate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, everyone's got their individual journey, but
Yeah.
so how does the getting more into the fitness world and then that journey to sobriety, how does that kind of intersect? What was that journey?
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the, I feel like for a lot of people, if they have the recovery and the, fitness thing, it usually was like fitness came after recovery, not always,
Mm,
but often. And so for me, it was interesting because the fitness stuff had been going on for a while. But I was just doing both. And
yeah.
so did I get a lot better at things once I got sober? Yes, absolutely. But I also like utilize the resource of fitness. And this is an interesting thing about like early recovery where, I have a friend, Sean Livingston, he has a podcast called I Am Redemption.
Hmm.
And it's awesome, but he actually was a heroin addict and he speaks openly about this. And for him, there's a documentary about him out there now. You can even just watch it on YouTube. But he went on to run 100-mile race
Wow.
in his like first year of recovery, which is just phenomenal. And it reminds me that I remember when I got sober, I couldn't hang out in the same spaces anymore because I
Right.
wasn't comfortable there. I didn't know what, there was a lot of change going on. And it was not only grieving the loss of my grandmother, but it was grieving the loss of like all of these relationships and all of this person that I used to be. And it was hard. And it was lonely. And so then I picked up a road cycling bike and I
Okay.
started road cycling and I started
Nice.
cycling hundreds of miles a week because I did not know what to do with my hands. And so,
Yeah.
I just was meeting up with these like groups that I found on Facebook on the
Yeah.
weekends at 8 a.m. in parking lots because I can't go out at 8 p.m. I got to get up at 8 p.m. for that. And anyway, so fitness had already been a part of my life, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't, so I got sober in April of 2021. And it was in 2020 when I finally did my first like intermediate competition and
Nice.
then RX competition.
Yeah.
And so like prior to that, I'd always been like, oh gosh, I'm trash at this. But then I started to believe in self shortly before getting sober. So it's just an interesting timeline there. And was getting better. I was making my nutrition was getting better unless I was on my binges, right?
Mm.
So I still was working really hard in the gym and continuing to improve my nutrition unless I was binging and then it was all a train wreck. But nonetheless, I was still making progress. And then once I got sober, then the progress, of course, shot up. But yeah, I implemented the endurance cycling thing
Yeah.
just because I didn't know what to do. And I think that that's just a really powerful tool that like, as much as hopefully we have balanced lives where we can like enjoy our fitness, but also have full lives outside of it. Like, I think it's also really okay if there are stages of our journey where like, maybe we do just need to train multiple times a day,
Yeah.
and maybe we overshoot the mark there and then have to come back down from it. But anyway, that's just my journey. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it was always a part of it. And then as far as like work in the fitness industry, I didn't start to work in the fitness industry until about 1 year sober.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so at this point, like you're on your sobriety journey. You've been doing fitness now for a little bit.
Yeah.
When was the moment, like what were you doing career-wise prior to entering the fitness industry? And then what made you want to make the switch?
Yeah. Yeah. I still can't believe I made that switch, dude. It's hard work. What the hell was I thinking? No, I'm kidding. It's hard work. It doesn't pay like my old job did. And I still would do it anyway.
Yeah.
So I was a real estate agent. I'd been
Okay.
a real estate agent. Yeah. So I did that job for 6.5 years. And I really enjoyed it. Like there's something really cool about being able to take people through a transaction that's probably the
Yeah.
biggest one they're going to do in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And to help them navigate that. So like I loved that job. And whenever I received the offer for the first job that I did take in the fitness industry, it was not the first job offer I had received. And by then I had been accumulating certifications. My first certification in the fitness industry was a CrossFit level 1 cert.
Hmm.
And I did that in 2020. And so then I got an L2, I want to say in 2021,
Okay.
and just in another one CDP. And then I went on to do my PN1 and blah, 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 blah,
Okay.
blah. Continued to broaden that, but I was accumulating those certifications because I wanted the education, not because I planned to use them. And so it was actually funny, on that first job that I took in the fitness industry, we were on a roadshow for that brand, and part of the job was coaching fitness. And
Okay.
so the founder of that company was like, hey, we actually do need you to coach fitness. You just so happen to be probably the most qualified one on paper. And I was like, yeah, but I don't do that. And so it was kind of just like shoved at me. And then the same thing when I moved to Austin, Texas, because I lived in Oklahoma for my first year of recovery. And then I moved to Austin, and it was for that job. And then I lost that job right after moving here. That company just had some changes internally occur. And so then I needed to get a new job, and a facility here said, you're going to be a coach here, very directly. The founder of that
Yeah.
company was like, you're going to work here. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that. But anyway, so it's just a gradual
Yeah.
progression into it. But I always liked to work events. And so the first stuff that I did do work wise in the fitness industry was like working at CrossFit events for
Okay.
a brand.
Got it.
And that was an absolutely cool experience. I wouldn't take any of it back. I'm very grateful for all of it. But I simply just was like, I was very into that space. I still have tremendous love for it. I'm still very involved in it. That company, I knew it was like post COVID. And so I knew that they were like struggling to get people overseas into the US to be at that event. And so I started sending emails and was like, I'll work for you. And by then, and I was still full-time real estate, was not planning to step out of that, just was like, I'm going to be at the games anyway, so I might as well work. I like to work events. And so that was kind of how that all got started. And then it wasn't that long after that when they were like, hey, we actually want you to just like leave your career and come do this thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't planning to do that, but glad I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
to have somebody recruit you on there is even better. Like
Yeah.
they want you
Yeah.
on
Well,
board.
it started as just like literally, I mean, I was just working on the stand, it started as simply just like, and that's what I think too, I guess maybe one of the like nuggets from this is if someone, since this is not Fit Friend, there are a lot of people who get into fitness who would love to work in the industry who don't even know where to begin. And an encouragement to that individual would literally be like, raise your hand. Like no one knows you want it if you don't ask. And so I was continuing to do all of the work to get better at things so that way, by the time I arrived in Austin, lost my job, went to an event at that place that I then went to work for. I think the only reason I got offered that job is because that guy watched the way that I move and said, oh, I know enough to know that you know what you're doing. Right.
Yeah.
So all of this work had been being accumulated, not knowing I was going to then go turn and use it professionally. But I just was reaching out to that brand saying, I'll work for you. And I do that even today. And guess what? Oftentimes I don't get acknowledged. Like to this day, I still try to work events for brands, for different, whether it's broadcasts or whatever. And I have no problem making the ask. And if it doesn't get acknowledged or received, or it's a no, that's okay. And so I think that's just a cool thing to note that like, if that's something somebody wants to do, like shoot your shot.
I absolutely love that because I operate by the no ask, no get policy. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. So you might as well just ask. And you'd be surprised what can happen by just asking. So I'm 100% on board for that because you just never know. So it's just worth asking. So I think love that.
One of the cool ones with that, and like just like we're here now because of that, right?
Yeah.
And every other guest that you speak to. I think when I started my podcast, the first like big ask that I got an immediate yes to, and was like, it was Brett Contreras. And what's so cool is, I mean, I just like cold reach out, whatever. And, but it just very honest, candid, like, here's what the situation is, would you be open to it? Whatever. We had the opportunity, and he was so kind and generous with his time. He did it. It was a wonderful conversation, but I mean, he's huge, right? Like he literally invented the barbell hip thrust. And so it was like, oh, whoa, so we did that. And then I was in Florida, where he now has Glute Lab in Fort Lauderdale, a
Mm-hmm.
matter of months later. And we got to meet up and train in person and all
Awesome.
of that. So that was like and of course there have been many, many more from there. But that was one of the early days, big ones, which I say
Yeah.
early days, that was literally the fall of 2022. That wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
But the like, shoot my shot. Oh my gosh, it got received. Wow. Now we're friends. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love it. I love it. I mean, you
Yeah.
just never know. You never know. So it's worth asking. So I love that.
Totally.
But, and on that note, like saying that that was like 2022, which brings me to the topic of how you have just grown tremendously in the fitness space. And I mean, through social media, like you have skyrocketed on that whole journey. So tell me like where the social media, like Instagram, all of that came into play while you were kind of getting into fitness, and then how that's kind of progressed.
Yeah. Um, I appreciate your kindness on that. Just like wanting to have me here is cool. So
Yeah.
thank you. But I have to be really abundantly clear that like I am not a social media expert at all. So I want to like really clearly preface, and I want to be also clear in that I believe that there can be a perception and a reality, and they cannot be aligned. And so what I want to say is someone may see me on social media and think, surely she's monetizing this. Surely this is going really well. By that, I mean, I'm making money on it. Or, like there could just be, when in reality, like that's not true. And it's because I don't believe that I'm the best marketer. I don't believe that I'm the best monetizer, any of those things. So I want to be very clear, because I think it can be looked at and be seen as like, she's crushing it, right? Which is like so kind. And then the truth is I'm enjoying the journey. And there are many things that like, if I wanted to truly optimize for growth, like if someone's listening to this and they're trying to optimize their presence on social media with the intention of purely growth, like you should probably go listen to somebody else talk about that. That's just, I'll
Yeah.
continue from here to give you my experience and journey so far.
Yeah.
But I also am playing a bit of a different game, I feel, in that I'm utilizing that tool to share a story and to cultivate relationships. And I am not so concerned with the today, here, now growth. I'm looking at the broad game of life. And so that's just my choice with it. And for me to get in a better situation financially, it maybe would be advantageous for me to have a different approach, right? So like, I don't know that this is at all the best one. It's just the one I have. So as far as using social media goes, I started to create reels in January of 2022 because the founder of that brand asked me to do so. So at that time, I was just doing it to create content for them. And there was no instruction for any of it. Like I just simply had downtime and thought it was fun. And so I was like really bad at it at first, but I was having fun. So what it started out as, and this has been another part of the journey, is like it started out as I was creating reels on Instagram with only my people that I actually know in real life existing there. And I was just doing it to promote clothing and things like that. So I was doing funny skits in the gym. And so humor is received pretty well on social media, and it has been historically, and I was using trending audios. So I go from 2,000 something people that I know to 30 something thousand people rapidly. So my ego ate that up, and I did not have the awareness around it. So then now this growth and presence here that I didn't need before it happened, and only did it because it was prompted by someone for a job. Now I need to keep feeding the machine, right? Because now you're telling me that you love me here, and I like that, and I want more of that. So it's been a real like journey from there to have to like check myself in what are you actually doing here? Like now that you do have the gift of people choosing to show up here, which I have tremendous gratitude for, but those people have had to go on a journey with me. Because like what I was sharing and what I do share now are not necessarily the same thing, because now I'm a coach. I wasn't a coach. Now I'm choosing to share my podcast. I wasn't a podcaster then. So it's just been the growth from that 30 whatever K pop on Instagram has slowed, but it does continue to grow. And it is, I'm not going to lie that the truth is there is this like social equity that takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have a personal brand, people may be more willing to speak to you, right?
Yeah.
So like it has its value for sure. But I am far more focused on cultivating relationships that translate to real life. And
Yeah.
at this point, growing my coaching business and the podcast through it, which often means I don't optimize it for as many eyeballs as possible all the time. I just want it to like be what resonates with me and with the community that I do have and am growing. And I don't really care about those other details at this stage. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's your personal brand, right? And it is showing your journey of that whole process through what you're posting. So it's like, yeah, well, now I'm doing a podcast, so I'm going to be posting about that. Now I'm a coach, I'm going to be posting things that I want there. So it is you, and it's authentically you, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. How long ago did you guys launch this podcast?
So Jake started the podcast prior to me entering. He had several episodes already up.
Okay.
And then I'm not exactly sure what year he started it in. But I'm the most recent addition to the team.
Okay. How long have you been doing it?
We launched our first episode earlier this month. So it's brand new. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I guess it's early enough stages. We got to like wait and see. But like, why did you choose to do it?
The podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because, oh my gosh, myself, it's been a journey. I love that you're asking me questions now. This is fantastic.
Well, it gets to be good. I don't know.
Because you're a podcaster yourself. She knows people. She knows how to do it. Yeah, I mean, it was a journey of myself figuring out like what I wanted to do and what I enjoyed doing. And over time, I realized that, oh my gosh, I love being in front of the camera. I love telling people stories. I love talking to people, and I ask a shit ton of questions.
Yeah.
Not because like just to ask, but I am genuinely curious. I'm a very curious person. I'm super curious about just people and their lives. And I think you can learn something from everyone that you meet, and everyone's story is so interesting and unique, even if you don't think that it is. And I love fitness. So I absolutely love fitness. I love lifting. It's been just such a staple in my life for so many years. And being able to blend those passions together is my ultimate goal. And I've done stuff on my own too. Like I've done YouTube videos and whatnot. And it was like, I always wanted to have somebody to partner with, to do this with. Cause I don't know. I just like that. The partnership ability, bouncing ideas off of somebody. It's like, what do you think? Like, where can we go? What can we do? And then I honestly randomly met Jake at a friend's holiday party, and I was like, he looked familiar. I was like, I've seen you before, and it was because he did these review YouTube videos. Like, I've seen you on there, and I was like, we're gonna do something together. Like, I don't know what it is yet at the time, and then eventually, like, this came about, and I was like, let's freaking do it with the podcast. And I was like, it's just such a perfect match.
Yeah, he's cool. I really like him. I met him for the first time in Florida, but he goes to the gym that I coach at.
On it.
So like we see each other all the time now, but we met in a completely different state. He's awesome. Super nice. I like him a lot.
So yeah, that's kind of why I would podcast, but let's segue back to you, Claire.
I have more questions about it, but it's fine.
You can have me on there. How about that? We can have a conversation. Okay. But so then let's turn it to you up podcast style. Like now, like you have that social media presence, which obviously helps with just getting reach and people to listen to what you're putting out, which is one of the reasons that I think social media growth is beneficial. Yeah. So then actually walk me through when you started coaching, like when that became like your job, and then when the podcast idea came about and when that started.
Yeah. So 2021, I worked that event, whatever. I guess it was 2022. Yes. So that spring, I went on a road show for that brand. I decided to go ahead. I worked a few other events for them, and I decided to go ahead and make that jump. And so the initial startup of it was to go do a road show. So I was going to a few different states here in the US, building out brand awareness, cultivating relationships, which I will say such a unique factor of that I yet again have a lot of gratitude for is like, I was the one doing the reach outs and the communication and the this and the that with the facilities and the owners and the coaches and the blah, and even the brands we were working with and some of the athletes, but it was all on behalf of the brand. And so I had like, yet again, gratitude to them, because I got to cultivate relationships that, like, had I not been aligned with them, like maybe I wouldn't have had the opportunity to. And
Yeah.
so that was another cool, like, nothing but gratitude for the experience thing. But so I go on the road show, and then at the end of the road show, the decision is made that I'm going to move to Austin. We knew that I wasn't going to go back to Oklahoma. There were like 3 different spaces or places that were kind of on the radar of where we would go. And I was the US community lead, was the title I was given for the brand. And then there was a new CEO that stepped into the company, and there was just a new direction that was taken post-COVID things. A number of different things occurred. And that's just how things work in large companies. You know, things do change. And so that's what happened. Things changed, and I was no longer needed. And so I suddenly have moved to a new place, and I am no longer doing what I thought I was going to be doing. And so I'm scared out of my mind because I've moved to a new state, and I've left a job where I have tremendous income to a job that I knew I wasn't going to have as good an income, but like was okay with it because I was passionate about it. So it was fine.
Yeah.
Now I have no income and I have expenses. So this is great.
Yeah.
And then I just dug a really big hole of debt that I'm currently actively working on getting out of.
Gotcha.
But so the coaching thing. So initially I launched the podcast in the fall of late summer, fall of 2022. And I did that because I lost the job. And I'm like, what do I do? And enough people said to me, like, you've got to have a podcast. Like, that's what you need to do. And so I said, okay, well, I don't know what the hell to do. So I love having conversations. Okay. So I launched it because it was just encouraged enough. And then from there with it, I thought I needed to monetize it fast because I needed to make money. Right.
Yeah.
And my expectations and reality were not friends. And so I was spending money on the podcast and not making any. And I let that go longer than I should have. And then, so that was basically season 1. And in season 1, I had conversations with incredible humans. And in fact, like, you should, anybody listening to this, like, totally recommend checking out both seasons. And what's cool is there's a very distinct difference from 1 to 2. That is, like, I had a lot of different individuals with large brands on season 1, which, like, how freaking insanely cool is that?
Yeah.
Loved every one of those conversations. But yet again, I have in the back of my mind, I've got to make this thing make money, you know? Whereas in season 2, so once I shut down season 1, and I had no idea whether I was going to pick it back up or not. I just had come to the place where I'd spent too much money. I wasn't making enough money, and I was overwhelmed. I was, had just right around that time was like about to go through a breakup, went through a breakup. There was just personal life was a mess. And I was no longer coaching at this facility over here. I hadn't started coaching over here. So a lot of stuff in my life was very chaotic. And so I went on ahead and stopped there. And so that was like 40 something episodes. And I only chose to pick it back up for season 2, which now we have like 71 episodes live and a few more banked. Nice. And we do once a week. We did once a week then, same schedule. We do once a week now. But I only picked it back up because, yet again, people, hey, Claire, you need to do that. You need to do that.
Yeah.
And ever since moving to Austin, Texas, the people who exist here are like, there are so many different wellness professionals or just professionals in a number of different industry, high level performers, you name it, like whether it's, a former Navy SEAL or the owner of this company, the founder of this athlete that, is the world champion in this, blah. People in Austin, like I have access to people on a daily basis here that I'm dumbfounded by. Like I told you right before coming on here that the girl I just had on is like a world champ jujitsu athlete, like awesome. Constantly I'm like, this is nuts that I just get to be in close proximity with you guys. Yeah. So getting to record those conversations feels like such a gift because it's a time capsule that I get to retain and then I get to share with the people who want to consume it. And so season 2 then pivoted. I started it back up a few months later after people were just saying, hey, we'd like it if you do that. Like we do miss it. It was good. Why aren't you doing it? And so I decided, okay, I can do audio. Because at the time I was having help, financially paying for having help with the production of it. And so then I was like, okay, I can at least do audio on my own. Like I have the capability to do that. So it went audio only for those first next 10 or so episodes. I think more than that, honestly. So there's a section where it's just audio, Apple Podcast, Spotify, you name it. It's still available all those places, but there's no video accompanying it.
Gotcha.
But that allowed me to continue to do it. And then yet again, here we go with the right people saying the right things. Enough people in my life were like, Claire, you can do this. Like you can do this with video. You can do this. So at this time, it has video, full episodes on YouTube. I do some short form that gets posted from it each week on Instagram, wherever. And then the audio, of course, lives on all the places, and they come out once a week. And that is a production that I would love to be able to say was a team project. And mind you, I have wonderful supportive humans in my life, but it taught me that I have the capacity to record it, to upload it, to color grade it, to clip it, to upload it, to do all those, I can do that. And that might sound silly, but I really truly believed that I couldn't. And so anyway, it's been, and the thing that changed from 1 to 2 as well is I went in person only. So I'm in person only at this time. And
that's awesome.
That the other thing is I don't care if it monetizes anymore. Like I thought that I needed it to, because I mean, hey, I still I need to make money. So technically I should be trying to make that thing monetize. But I was like, I don't even care anymore. I love these conversations. This is such a gift to me to get to do this thing that I don't even care anymore. And so as a result of that choice, now I've chosen to have conversations where I do not care if you even have a social media account. If it's a conversation about a topic that I want to speak about, I want to have that chat. And so it's kind of shifted there. And it's broadened the horizon of topics. And so anyway, that was a very, very long-winded answer, but that's what's gone on there.
No, it tells the whole story. And I think that's powerful. Well, one of the main things that I've just noticed in your life is you've had several people that have really supported and push you to go in the right directions, if you will. What do you attribute that to? Have you sought out people, or is it just randomly lucky that I've had these people in my life? What does that look like?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I think that I'll do my best to answer it without having their perspective and only having my own. I think that I'm hardwired for hard work. I like to work hard. So most of these situations have occurred because I came into some sort of fitness event, fitness thing, something in the fitness world, and I showed up and I worked hard. And I actually gave a shit about the people around me. And those two things get the job done for me. So yes, I need to figure out my financial life. We get that. I've said enough of that here. Okay. But I'm constantly amazed by the connections that I do have, floored, shocked. It's still amazing to me. It continues to be every day. But when I think about what makes them interested in me back, right? Because they do pour back into me. And so what got that done? And I'm I think what it is I show up and I work really hard. So with my fitness, I work so hard that you have to respect it, right? So I think that's one of the key things when I look at, for example, a good friend of mine today is Cody Sanchez, right? And most people know her on the internet. Do you know who she is?
I do not.
Okay, she's phenomenal. She's very large personal brand, highly successful. She comes from the financial world.
Okay.
And she owns a company called Contrarian Thinking. She has a portfolio of small businesses that do, I think over 100 million annually, plus her media business that's just, she's doing very well. And she was my very first one-to-one personal training client. Okay. And so why did I get to work with her? And I did not know who she was because I don't come from the financial world or anything like that. And so it was shocking to me as I started training with her that I'm batting people away, get away from, we're busy, and then I go look her up because now I'm curious about her because I love people. And I'm oh my gosh, so she's been such a gift to me. And I think it's cool because I say all this financial stuff and I'm she's planting seeds in me now that will continue to blossom over the course of time. But okay, so why was she interested? Well, it was because of literally my arms. Okay. Now I'm not whatever, but that's the truth of why did she choose to work with me as her trainer? Awesome. Because she liked my arms. Okay.
Love it.
And then why did that guy give me that job at that company, which by the way, it's a really reputable place here locally. It was because he could identify the hard work. Why did, then we can play down the list of, I could just go down the list of these influential individuals who you would look at and go like, those are in her circle. How did she get those in her circle? And I think one of the key things is I show up and work really hard. And what I hear from these people is like, they don't even care if you're the most fit person. So it's not even necessarily because like, I'm not like, my gymnastics still suck. Okay. So like, there are still things that like I can go forward to get a lot better at, but I'm willing to work really hard. And then while I'm there, I actually genuinely like care about you. Like when you walk into the room and think, how can I add to the room? Like, what can I do for the people in here? And that's not inherent knowledge Claire stuff. That's stuff that's been taught to me from others that have some quality of life that I want. And so thinking before I go into a room, before I go into a situation, like, how can I serve others here? How can, and so just doing those things like really enables all of this to just naturally occur.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely incredible. And to have those types of people in your life is so powerful.
It's jarring even to me. And then it's really exciting because it affirms like, where can you take it from here? Like I think all the time, like I could go down the list of other individuals that I consider hanging out with my best friends by just consuming their YouTube content, and they don't know my name yet, but they will, we'll be friends.
I love it.
And if we're not, that's fine. But like, might as well believe it. And I think that I'll do the work to be the person in the room. And so that's it. Just do the work to be the person in the room and give a shit about people. You'll probably be fine.
Yeah. And I mean, earlier you did speak about like community was something that you value. So it seems to be working.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, community is a big, big part of it. Like we live in a world where it's so easy to be in our own little bubble, like it's so easy to fall into that isolation trap and to recluse from the world and to live in this like comfort zone, which is actually quite miserable. And so like finding some sort of places where you can get that community and like seeking that, like if that's something that someone feels like they're lacking, then like it is your responsibility to go find it. And what you will find once you get there is that you do belong, even if you don't think that you do. And they're probably glad, like if you just say you're like not fit yet, right? Like you haven't been to the gym in a long time. Maybe you've never been, or you haven't been in a long time. You're like, oh my gosh, they're going to know that I don't belong, whatever. If you show up and get curious about what they're up to, they're going to love talking to you, Like if somebody asks you questions about podcasting, you're probably like, I want to talk about that. Or fitness, I want to talk about that. They could know nothing. And if they're interested in you because of what you do, like you're having the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think having a genuine interest in other people is important. And I mean, I feel like I just naturally have an insane amount of curiosity.
Okay, what are you curious about right now? Like, what's your one thing right now that you're like consuming, learning about, whatever?
As far as like in general,
anything you're willing to share.
I mean, obviously it's content creation. I'm always interested in better ways of presenting information. I like to watch other people interview just to see how they do it. I love to watch broadcasters and because I also will MC CrossFit competitions a lot. So I just like to watch people and like how they do things and learn from that. Those are a couple. I'm always interested in fitness. I go down rabbit holes of training and like programming and just for my own obsession. But that type of stuff just gets me excited. And then,
well, how did you get plugged into the MCing CrossFit competitions? Because yet again, that's kind of a niche that you've got to like get started somewhere, right?
Yeah, that one was pretty random, I would say. I was working for this company at the time that was they had this event that was an indoor cycling like time trial. And the other guy that was going to be on the microphone for it was sick and they needed somebody else. So I was like, I'll try it. I had so much fun doing that. I was like, this is insanely like so fun to do. Like getting the crowd riled up. Like I was like, this is too cool. I was like, I got to do this again. And at the time, I knew the guys at Coda CrossFit Iron View, and they were going to have their first Coda Iron Games comp. And I asked them if they would let me MC. And they said yes. And that was my first CrossFit competition. And after doing that one, I was like, I need to do more. So I literally just reached out, like cold email, cold message, CrossFit comps in the area. And I was like, hey, you guys looking for an MC? Like, I'd love to be a part of your event. And from there, I just kind of like grew different comps and it just kept going. I kept getting on new ones and it just kind of grew into something. And I honestly have so much fun doing it. It's such a blast. And it's like an outlet for my energy. And it's like just perfect.
Yeah. I like want to hear you do it now because I don't think I've never been to one that you did. And I like
Yeah.
really want to hear like see what that feels like. Cause it is like
Yeah.
a really unique thing. Like there are a lot of different people that MC and do, broadcasting and things like that. And like,
Yeah.
I feel like there are so many different ways to do it and you having your own flavor of it is like a good thing, you know?
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
curious what your flavor is like,
it was so funny. I mean, I had absolutely no background in it whatsoever prior to doing that Iron Games, and I was just doing things that I thought would make sense. It's
Uh-huh.
like, I love doing the intros of the athletes coming out, so I will like make them feel like superstars, hopefully, when I'm
Mhm.
calling each person out in their lane. And then
Mhm.
it's like, well, let me let people know what's going on the floor. So I'm like, this is what's happening. This is who's in the lead. This is blah, 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 all that stuff. And then in between, it's like, we got sponsors. We got this. It's like, don't forget to do that. It's like getting the crowd riled. Like, yeah, they're almost done. Like all that good stuff. It's like you can blend so much. It's just
Yes.
incredible.
Yeah. And it is. You literally like the energy of the room is riding upon like I mean, it's just you don't control all of it, but like you are a huge contribution to it. And it's a
Yeah.
really that's also so cool. And I want to say, just in case they actually like listen to this, hear this, that like one, shout out Kevin and Liz from Coda Iron View, just
Yeah.
because I like whenever I go visit, I'll stay with them. I've done it like for
Oh,
years,
nice.
and they're
They're great.
wonderful.
Heck
They're
yeah.
wonderful hosts. They're wonderful supporters. They've been great. And then obviously Casey as well. So just
Yeah.
because of that connection, in case they listen to this,
Heck
just like,
yeah. Shout them out. It's a
yeah.
great place.
And if you're
So,
in the Boulder area, they just went to a new facility. I had like they opened a new one. I haven't even been there yet, but either way, like if you're in that area and you're looking for a fitness facility to go check out, totally go check out their facility.
yeah, Coda
Yep.
Iron View. They're in Louisville now. They
Okay.
just expanded, even bigger.
Okay.
Incredible spot.
I saw
Um,
that, but I haven't been.
so yeah, if you're in the area, definitely go check them out. It's an
Yep.
awesome community. Great people. Great
Yep.
people.
Yep.
So let's switch gears then. Let's talk a little bit about your training. Like I'd love to hear like if you have like your training goals, what you've been training for now. Are you still CrossFitting? Are you competing? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to fitness today, my whole perspective is so much different,
Yeah.
but in a beautiful way. My life continues to get more full, which is so wonderful, and so I'm more intentional with the training that I do, and I do not train the volume that I used to train. And my body is receiving that in ways that I like, right? But I like that there gets to be so much individualization. And even with my coaching, with each person I coach, like there's individualization. Yeah, I feel like there are some baseline essentials. And then from
Mm-hmm.
there, like, what do you actually want to work on?
Yeah.
So for me today, to be honest, I started to actually identify physique because I just came from that get it from point A to point B as fast as possible
Yeah.
realm. And so I
Sure.
never noticed like what my body really like looked like. I just wanted it to perform. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so then I moved to Austin. I start being in different facilities and between having clients that wanted to grow bigger butts and being
Mm-hmm.
informed that I had none. Then I decided to actually nerd out on that, hence the reach out to Brett Contreras and
Yeah.
so on. And began to start to shift my perspective of training to what does it look like to train for the purpose of muscle development, for
Mm-hmm.
actual growth of muscles, right?
Yeah.
And so right now for me, what that looks like is there's a lot of emphasis throughout the course of my week on training my quads and my glutes. I still
Mm-hmm.
obviously, so what I would say throughout the course of a week for me is I train my lower body resistance training, which is where I rest for multiple minutes between my sets. I just do different exercises like tempo work, isometric work, you name it, with the intention of growing those muscles. Probably 3 times a week, right? And then
Okay.
maybe I do one upper body session that's like an intentional like resistance training on the upper body. Maybe two, but typically just one. And then there's 1 or 2 days a week where I'll do my CrossFit type stuff, right? So I
Okay.
have right now like this little small crew of Metcon Mondays that we're all like ex CrossFitters or current CrossFit or whatever, right? Where we
Yeah.
do CrossFit. And
Yeah.
it's super fun. I literally have a blood blister right now from doing 93 toes to bar because
Whew.
it was 10 reps for 10 minutes, EMOM, whatever. And like gymnastics has always been the thing that I'm like the worst with, right?
Yeah.
And I did 93. Why? Because we got to minute 7 and I was falling apart like Post Malone. So I took the minute off and then I finished out the next one because I can do that
Yeah.
because I can choose my fitness journey today.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to like have those opportunities to kind of just, okay, this is just for fun. I'll just do whatever it is. Like you're the one that's actually trying to compete right now. So whatever. I do wind up running Hyroxes a couple times a year because they're super fun and they're a really good temperature check on fitness. It's the same test every time.
Yeah.
And so I've run the women's pro every single time. I did
Nice.
qualify and run the women's pro in Worlds in Vegas in 2022, which was like
Let's
way cool.
go.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was fun. And so I continue to run those. And I love just like getting to check in and see how's your fitness going there.
Yeah.
I so far since moving here do one CrossFit competition per year. I'm
Okay.
open to more if it works, but I still like to do that stuff for fun. The majority of my training today, though, is very resistance training focused because, like I said, like I've got a lot of other things pulling a lot of energy, and so I got to be really mindful of my nervous system today. And like if I go do a bunch of high intensity stuff all the time, I may not see the results that I'm seeking. And I actually want. And the other key of like, why am I choosing to grow my lower body? If I do that, my coaching business will probably benefit from the direct result of continuing to shift my body composition in a more desirable route according to the public. I truly believe that this coaching is really good. I think that what I'm up to over there is solid, sound information to help people live a better quality of life. So if me growing a bigger ass is going to get that done, I'm going to do it. That's the truth. So what's great is it's not coming from some place of like, I feel inadequate, but I'm like, I know how to do this thing. This is going to make this probably sell more. And once people get here, I believe that we're doing high quality work. And yes, I take information from Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and Dr. Peter Attia and things like that. And I'm really implementing understanding that longevity is, if we're looking for longevity, we need to be as durable as possible, as mobile, then stable, then strong. We need to have as much skeletal muscle on us as possible so that if we get injured or ill, then we're going to be able to deal with that best because those things do happen in life. And getting that pain-free performance specialty certification, I've taken that certification 2 times, and it heavily informs how I warm people up and how I train people today and how I train myself. So things have shifted. And that was a long-winded answer, but I can't really give a simple one there and feel satisfied with it. So
Yeah. Well, then tell me how you've enjoyed that shift, because I mean, I always very highly encourage females to do resistance training to some extent. It's extremely beneficial, extremely beneficial. And then for myself, I mean, I've come from a bodybuilding background, so I'm like all about hypertrophy and and I love getting stronger. So I'm curious to see, because I always say I dabbled in CrossFit because I never fully drank the Kool-Aid.
I bathed in it.
But I'm curious to hear like how that transition has gone for you, because I think even just like people that do enjoy CrossFit could benefit from doing just more like hypertrophy strength based stuff prior. And I think they would be so much more successful in their CrossFit journey by having that base of strength and muscle mass to be able to perform better in the CrossFit space. So I'm curious to hear of like your reverse journey of how that's gone.
I have so many thoughts. There's no way that we can spend a very long period of time with this type of information. So what I want to start with is the fact that like I've made it clear here that I have tremendous love for it because I do. It is what gave me a broad foundation, and without having shown up to a facility where that's what they were doing, and so I just kind of had to do that stuff, I would have never sought out Olympic weightlifting. I would have never sought out gymnastics. I never would have learned how to stand on my hands, like all of these different things that like were just a part of that experience that like I've gotten to take and carry with me. And even just, I did experience an injury, as people do when they choose to do things at like, in a competition setting, in a competitive setting, where I experienced an injury where we had it on video, and the physical therapist, chiropractor are like, and it's deep muscle contusion. My quadricep is like
Okay.
permanently bended. It's pretty gnarly.
Oh,
But
wow.
like either way with that, it was like, well, how did you not rip your knee to shreds? Because like what with the video, with the internal rotation and the full depth, it was just a mess how it went
Mm-hmm.
down. And it's like, oh, well, all of the training that I was doing did make my joints very durable. Right.
Right.
So like, that's where I think I want to give credit where credit is due, because I have so much love and respect for that foundation, and I still use it today.
Yeah.
And then you hear a lot of these people who come from whatever background they come to, but like, why can't we do both? Is kind of my thought, like,
Yeah.
so training like that gives me access to a broad range of motion, which is great for my mobility. Like I came
Mm-hmm.
into these other things with like really mobile joints because I was doing that, which is so wonderful. But then
Yeah.
from there, you talk about coming from the other side of things and doing it with the hypertrophy, the intention of gaining the growth of the muscle. And like, we now know that that's really, really important. And for women who aren't so sure about that or not, like, it's just quality of life over the course of time. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, there's no reason to not. And often the toned look that we're seeking means that we're going to have to grow some pretty juicy
Yeah.
muscles. So like,
Yeah.
it just is what it is. Right.
Yeah.
But often, like, what can be lacking there though is then in like what I've enjoyed so much from spending more time focusing on the resistance training side of things, it absolutely does make my performance over on the other side better, because I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of isometric work today where I hold positions
Yeah.
and I really think about engaging the muscles that I want to engage. And then I do a lot of tempo work today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many people can do all sorts of explosive movements for many, many years and can't even do a 5-second step down off of a box without falling,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really easy to just like rush through movement all the time, or to get very used to that. And it's a whole other ball game to be able to do a controlled eccentric of anything.
Yeah.
And so like,
Absolutely.
slow down. And so incorporating more of that has given me access to greater stability, which is
Yeah.
something that was definitely lacking before, in addition to just understanding things like lengthened partials on lifts and
Yeah.
stuff, that like, how can I train the muscle in its lengthened position as best as possible so that I can achieve more recruitment of the muscle belly, and all these different things. Like,
Yeah.
how can I make that thing grow by doing those things, right? And so
Yeah.
like, it all blends together to be this beautiful thing. I love going and doing the full ranges of motion on things a couple of different days a week, because that reminds me how capable I am.
Yeah.
I'm doing things like, Olympic weightlifting or sandbag work or whatever, doing different training where my spine is going through flexion and extension
Yeah.
and rotation all throughout the lift. Like, those are like durability in action, right? So I
Yep.
really want to make sure and do some of that. And then I'm also very at peace with also utilizing the tool of isolation exercises. Like,
Yes.
why can't we do all of it? And
Yeah.
so my body feels really good to exist in today. I don't need to do the volume of training that I used to need to do in order to feel really happy with this skin suit and feel like it
Mm-hmm.
will perform whenever it is called upon. But I can
Yeah.
also just go do a bunch of other stuff in life and don't have to spend all of my time training.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love that. And I think it's great to be able to blend it all, because there's value in all of it. And I think that's a great thing that CrossFit has done is, number one, it's introduced people to some form of resistance training. Like, it introduces people to Olympic weightlifting. It introduces people to gymnastics. It's a great way for people that probably would have not gotten into something like that to get into it. So it's a beautiful thing.
Totally.
But yeah, I think implementing all of those elements into training is very beneficial. And then it comes down to goals, right? It's like, what are your goals? And then you can kind of
Absolutely.
go down a whole rabbit hole of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. When I'm in Austin, I'm gonna have to reach out so we can train together.
Yeah. Do reach out. And it is so sport specific, and like, I even love the Hyrox thing gaining popularity because it's removed
Yeah.
some of those high-low, and I know there's all sorts of like,
Sure.
there's camps on each side. They're like, "Rah," right?
Yeah.
Whatever, choose your
Yeah.
journey. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's cool if it's a way for people to have some sort of measurable thing that they can work to achieve. And it's also not just marathons, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with marathons, but obviously if if we do just run all the time, then at some point, and like we have to be durable too, right? And so the impact that could happen over the course of time there may be something that we need to counteract with some resistance training. So I love that Hyrox has done this beautiful job of blending together. You must be able to run, okay?
Yeah.
A moderate volume of running too, not anything, it's not it's not super, super long distance. And then also you're going to have to push heavy shit and pull heavy shit and carry heavy shit,
Right.
like it's I like what they've done there. And any way in which we can kind of give people access to like more well-rounded fitness is great. So like, I like it all. I mean, but the resistance training thing, I will say when I'm just looking at like, cause it's easy to nerd out on like, what is your goal and what do you want to work for? And that's cool that we can emphasize and focus on those things. For most people, like they just want to enjoy their experience in their body better. And so, okay, how can we achieve that? And that's actually really easy to achieve. And often resistance training, like a sufficient warm up plus resistance training is like all that individual needs, maybe at some point they dabble a little bit further into a little bit more conditioning because it's great for their heart and their brain. But like, it's just, I think it can take people out of the game a lot to think like, well, I'm going to have to just become, I'm going to have to do so much, when in reality, like we know enough to know now that like, actually, if you just are smart about it and do the right things, you don't have to do that much volume of any of them.
Yeah, it can be a very simple process if you allow it to. And then most people, it's like, let's just move, let's just move a little. So yeah, that's funny. But yeah, I love that. I love that. Resistance training, especially, always try to encourage women to do it. It is not easy to get too big, ladies. Not easy.
Yeah, I dare you.
Yeah, right?
When you get too big, then go back down.
Yeah, right? You'll probably end up looking the way you wanted to.
Get too big, and then tell me how you did it, and then you can stop.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Well, let's kind of I want to know then, like, what are your kind of ultimate goals with everything, like business wise, training wise? What does that look like for you in the future? What do you want it to look like?
Yeah, I have no attachment to a timeline at all. Like I couldn't give you a 5-year plan. I couldn't give you anything like that. What I do know is that right now I've chosen to utilize I've nerded out on biomechanics and on nutrition and on these different things for long enough now to be a resource to others in those departments. And I get a lot of joy out of it. Like it's really cool to empower someone in their body or to be a tool that they can use to do better with that. Right. And so that's what I'm choosing to do today. But obviously, like we talked about with the recovery thing, what I will say there for anybody who heard any of that earlier, who also is either personally struggling with any of that stuff or knows someone that they love that is also struggling with it, being a resource to that community is a big priority to me. And so those people, I'm sure that my socials will be put in the description or something like that. Those people can contact me, and I'm not saying I'll have all the answers for you, but I will happily point you in a direction of resources that I trust, whether it's for you to deal with being a loved one of, or whether it's you actually with your own stuff, just because that touches more people than I mean, it's, if there's anything in this world that I think is like deserving of hatred, it's probably addiction. It makes me really angry. I have to accept that it exists, but it makes me really angry because it's a very hurtful disease and it kills people every day. Anyway, so I don't really like, as far as like, what is my goal with it? Like, enjoy the experience and positively impact others. I think we got a lot of different avenues to get that done. Today, it's through the form of fitness, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the journey. But like some days that's emceeing a competition. Some days that's, well, every day that's coaching clients through movement. Some days that's just doing my Monday group coaching call where we talk predominantly about mindset and maybe some other stuff. And we just work on a gratitude practice and the simple stuff, like it's coaching today is the main thing, but maybe I write a book later. Maybe the podcast like really pops off, and which, by the way, I feel like it already has, so I don't even care. But like I don't know that I have any sort of clear answer for any of that. It's interesting. My boyfriend, Jimmy, the first time we spent time together, and he was telling me about all, like, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he is a pro wrestler, and he is a pro bodybuilder, and he is got third place I'm gonna say it wrong, but nationals in powerlifting, whatever, the natty division of bodybuilding or powerlifting last year, like high level of that, all these different things he's doing. And he was telling me about his schedule at the time, and I was like, what are you doing this for? And he was like, to be a superhero to millions of kids. Period. Full. And I
Awesome.
was like, that was a very concise answer.
Yeah.
Like, you seem to know what you're up to over there, you know?
That's the
And so,
why. Yeah.
and it's so cool. And he's doing a great job. And I will say too, if, you know, somebody's looking for a coach, whether it's rehabbing from an injury, he has a lot of experience with that, or whether it's, he's also a really good one and he does online coaching as well. So totally shameless plug there, because he's taught me a ton.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know that I really care too much at this stage or could tell you too clearly, because I'm technically really just within my first couple of years in this whole new world of
Yeah.
whatever this is that I'm up to. And I love what I'm doing. And as long as that's the case, I'm pretty cool with it. I like helping other people. It's a tool I pick up often in order to feel fulfilled in life. I do want to help other people. And thankfully all this curiosity has given some tools. So we might as well share them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. I mean, you never know where life can take you, so be open to the journey is what I like to
Yeah.
say.
Okay. What about for you? Like, if I flip that back on you, can you concisely answer? Because I just made a mess.
I mean, honestly, my goals would be I want to be able to be creating content as like my full-time job. Like that's what I want to do. And whatever that may look like, I don't know 100%. Would it be like through podcasts? I'm not sure. Like cuz I do like doing in-person video stuff too with people. I just know that I want to be presenting information in some way. And then especially I do love storytelling and being able to share people's stories in some way, whether that be through a podcast or through like day in the life video, or like we're going to see this person and see what they do type of stuff. I just want to be in that content creation space and being a host. Like I love hosting.
Yeah.
I love doing that. So it's like whatever that may look like, I don't know 100%, but I know that's what I would love to be doing as my job. And I mean, whether like clearly like this isn't my full-time thing right now, but I still love doing it. And then I think that's powerful to be passionate about something that you're doing. And honestly, like, I mean, that's from my own perspective, but people listening to this, I feel like, because I like hearing people's stories. So it's like, I hope that people can listen to these things or watch these things and take something from it, inspire them, motivate them to live their best life. Because I always preach, we've got one life, this one. So like make the best of it, do things that you love to do things that like set your soul on fire, like have fun, like enjoy it because you have one. So that's kind of my overall message for the world.
Yeah. And even while this isn't your full-time thing at this time, the podcast hosting, that you don't know what it's going to look like over the course of time, like you're enjoying what you're doing right now and you're getting reps. Like the way that I see my podcast too is like, I'm continuing to like refine and hone a craft. And so whether or not it's like outwardly perceived as a success at this time or not, it's kind of like you're still getting reps, just like in the gym, like with reps comes ease, with reps comes ease, with every emceeing event that you do, like all of these things. If it's something that you're enjoying doing or you're curious about, like you win from taking action regardless of what the external validation of it even is.
100%. I think that's so powerful. It's like if there is something that you want to be doing, and if it's something that you can't stop thinking about doing, do it. Whatever that small step is in that direction, do it. It's action that makes it all happen. Like that's it. Like you have to take action. Otherwise, you're just gonna be thinking about it all day, and nothing is ever gonna happen. Action is the magic. So
totally.
So Claire, then where, I know you mentioned this, we are gonna have your links down in the description and whatnot, but where can people find you?
Yeah. So we'll all be down there, but my Instagram account is literally just my name. So it's at Claire Bays, ClaireBays. You can find me on all the different listening platforms on it's very easy. Conversations with Claire. We kept it simple.
Yeah.
And you know who actually probably had the biggest hand in like influencing that? Because I started banking episodes in an RV at the CrossFit Games.
Oh, nice.
And like John Woolley, Make Wads Great Again was one of the ones that was like, you should just call it that. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what the hell to call it. So great.
Nice.
Anyway. Yeah. But so you can find that wherever you consume. And then if you go to clairebayscoach.com, that's where you can check out my online coaching. The group coaching is like super cheap and like insanely cool. The app is beautiful. You get custom meal plans, custom workout plans. Like it's silly good. And I do weekly coaching calls with that crew. I've been doing them since January 2022. We have not missed one. I'm sorry, 2023. So over a year now, we haven't missed one. And then you can apply for one-to-one there as well, which is just an elevated experience. So those are the predominant places to find me all over the place.
And you're also in-person coaching at On It?
On It. Yeah.
In Austin. Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's like a fitness jungle. We actually just opened our outdoor area this past weekend at our like giant sweat fest that we do annually. But anyway, so we already had like a massive indoor facility. Girl, I don't even know how many Concept 2 pieces of equipment we have, but I think it's over 100. Like I'm pretty confident it's over 100.
No kidding.
Oh, I mean, how many runners we have? At least 10, but that's assault runners. But then like C2 bikes, there's no way our fleet isn't greater than 20 now. Like ski ergs, we got at least 20, if not more. It's like, it's such a dope facility. And I always say it's like a jungle of fitness. And there's just all of these different like species of animals doing so many different things that like good luck being uninspired or judgmental of movement, because everybody's doing such different things. But we did just open the back outdoor facility. So that's really exciting. But yet again, just another like really cool community to plug into. And those people have made a huge impact on my life since moving here and you know, seeking a new place to hang out, and they gave me a place to call home. So
awesome. Okay, I'll come train with you. You sold me.
Sold you. It's really not hard sell. We have contrast therapy. I can keep going. We got a cafe. We got the best people. You're gonna want to go. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Claire, thank you so much for being on here today and for chatting with me.
Yeah,
loved every minute.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for choosing to do this. Like, it's a cool thing, and like you said, it's your side hustle. You know, so like. This takes work for you to choose to show up to. So anyway, I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Peace.